My mother didn't cry when I told her I updated my will. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask why. She just looked at me across the dinner table and said, very calmly, "Delete your wife from it. Blood comes first." The way she said it made it sound like a correction, like I had misspelled a word. We were at my parents' house for Sunday dinner. Same dining room I grew up in. Same heavy oak table with the scratch near the edge from when I dropped a toolbox at 16, and she made me apologize to the furniture. Emily was next to me, gently bouncing our 8-month-old son on her knee. My dad was at the head of the table, cutting his roast into precise, silent cubes. My younger sister, Claire, was scrolling through her phone, pretending not to listen but hearing every word. I had mentioned the will casually. That was my mistake. Emily and I had updated it 2 weeks earlier. Nothing dramatic. No looming death. No terminal diagnosis. Just adulthood. We bought a house. We had a child. We both have decent jobs. It felt irresponsible not to have things documented properly. If something happens to me, everything goes to Emily. If something happens to both of us, it goes into a trust for our son. Simple, clean, logical, apparently unforgivable. "Mom," I said carefully, thinking she was joking. "That's not how wills work." She didn't smile. "Yes, it is. You just change it." Emily's hand stilled on our son's back. "I'm his wife," she said quietly. My mother turned her head slowly toward her, like a spotlight adjusting. "And wives can leave," she said. "Blood doesn't." There it was. The hierarchy. Marriage, temporary. Motherhood, permanent. My dad cleared his throat, but didn't look up. Claire muttered, "Oh my God," under her breath, but kept scrolling. "It's not about leaving," I said. "It's about protection." "Protection from who?" my mother snapped. "From uncertainty." She laughed sharply. "You think she needs protection from us?" Emily stood up then, calm but pale. "I'm going to put him down for a nap," she said softly. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She carried our son upstairs while my mother watched her go. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," she said. "She's isolating you." "I updated a legal document," I replied. "That's not isolation." "You made her primary beneficiary," she said, her voice tightening. "You cut us out." "I didn't cut you out. You didn't include us. There's a difference. But in her world, there isn't." I leaned back in my chair. "Mom, you are not entitled to my estate." She stared at me. The air shifted. "Not entitled?" she repeated, like I had insulted her character. "Legally or morally." Her fork clattered onto the plate. "After everything we've done for you." There it was. The ledger. Always the ledger. My entire life, my mother has treated parenting like an investment portfolio. College tuition? A deposit. Letting me live at home after graduation? A loan. Helping with my first car? Equity. And apparently, death benefits were the dividends. Emily came back downstairs a few minutes later. She sat next to me, but didn't touch me. That was deliberate. She knows my mother reads gestures like evidence. My mom leaned forward. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly now. That quiet tone she uses when she's about to escalate. "If something happens to you, that woman controls everything. That woman is my wife. She hasn't been here since you were born." "No," I said. "But she'll be here if I die." Silence. My dad finally looked up. "Let's not get dramatic," he murmured. "You started it," Claire said without looking up from her phone. My mom shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Marriage is not permanent," she said. "Statistics prove that." "So what's your plan?" I asked. "I die, and you manage my money?" "I safeguard it," she corrected. "For who?" "For family. We are family." Her jaw tightened. "You have a new family," she said, and the word new carried venom. "Don't forget the original one." There it was. The real issue. I wasn't hers in the same way anymore. The will just made it official. I stood up. "We're leaving." "You always leave," she snapped. "Yes," I said. "When this starts." We packed up quietly. No yelling. No dramatic exit. That would have fed her. But the drive home was silent. Emily stared out the window. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "For what?" she asked. "For dragging you into this." She turned to me. "You didn't drag me. I married you. That includes your mother." There was no bitterness in her voice. Just exhaustion. "You don't have to justify protecting me," she added. I nodded. But I knew this wasn't over. Because my mother doesn't accept symbolic loss. And the will wasn't just paper to her. It was proof that she wasn't first anymore. The text started the next morning. "Mom, We need to talk privately. Mom, without her. Mom, this is about family legacy. I didn't respond immediately. By lunch, she had called 3 times. By dinner, she had called my sister. Claire texted me. She's spiraling. Just FYI. Spiraling in my mother's language means mobilizing. The next day, she showed up at my office. Unannounced. Reception buzzed me. Your mother is here, the receptionist said carefully. She says it's urgent. Of course she did. I walked into the lobby. She was sitting upright in one of the waiting chairs like she was about to testify in court. We need to fix this, she said immediately. Not here. Then where? Because you won't answer. I was at work. You're always at work, she snapped. Or with her. There it was again. Division narrative. Mom, I said quietly. This is inappropriate. No, she said. What's inappropriate is cutting your parents out of your estate like we're strangers. I didn't cut you out. I prioritized my wife. She stood up. You are making yourself vulnerable. To what? To betrayal. I laughed despite myself. Betrayal? Yes, she said. Women leave when money is involved. Emily makes more than I do. But facts have never interfered with my mother's fear. I'm not changing it, I said firmly. Her expression shifted. Cold. You think Vao Zhao drank blood? Yes. She inhaled sharply. Then don't expect blood to show up when she leaves. There it was. Not a prediction. A curse. I felt something inside me settle in a way it hadn't before. Are you threatening to cut me off? I asked. She didn't answer directly. You are choosing her over us. No, I said. I'm choosing my wife. That's what marriage is. Her face hardened. This isn't finished. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about control. And my mother had just realized she no longer had it. If my mother had simply been angry, I could have handled it. Anger burns hot and fast. What she did instead was strategic. 3 days after she showed up at my office, my aunt called. I heard you rewrote your will, she said without preamble. I stared at my phone. From who? A pause that wasn't really a pause. Your mother is concerned. Concerned about what? That you're being influenced. There it was. The word again. Influenced. Like I was 12 and someone had convinced me to skip church. I'm 36, I said. No one is influencing me. Well, she continued carefully. She says Emily insisted. Emily hadn't even been in the room when I signed the final documents. But truth doesn't matter once narrative spreads. By the end of the week, 2 cousins had texted me variations of, heard there's tension. You know Mom and Dad won't be around forever. Emily noticed the shift before I did. You're checking your phone constantly, she said one night while we were cleaning bottles. She's calling people. Of course she is. She's telling them I cut her out. Emily rinsed a bottle slowly. She feels cut out, she said. She's not. No. Emily agreed gently. But she's not central anymore. And that's the part she can't tolerate. I didn't answer. Because she was right. 2 nights later, Mom invited us to what she called a family discussion. Translation, public pressure. It was at my parents' house again. Same dining table. Same oak scratch. But this time there were more chairs. My aunt. My uncle. Claire. Even my grandmother. No one warned me. That was deliberate. Mom stood when we walked in. Thank you for coming, she said sweetly. Emily squeezed my hand once. We sat. Mom folded her hands like she was chairing a board meeting. I've called everyone because this affects all of us, she began. It doesn't, I said. It does, she snapped. Your decisions impact family legacy. Legacy. We're middle class. There is no dynasty. I updated my will, I said calmly. That's it. You removed blood protection, she countered. My grandmother blinked slowly. Removed, she repeated. I felt heat rise in my neck. I didn't remove anyone. I ensured my wife and child are protected. Mom's eyes flashed. So your parents don't matter. That's not what I said. But that's what you did. There's a trick she uses. She reframes a boundary as cruelty. She makes you defend something you never attacked. Emily leaned forward slightly. With respect, she said, her voice steady. This isn't up for group debate. Mom's face tightened. You see, she said to the room. She's already speaking for him. I'm sitting right here, I said. Then speak, she demanded. Fine. I'm not changing my will. Silence. Heavy. Charged. My uncle cleared his throat. Maybe there's a compromise. What compromise? I asked. Perhaps, Mom said quickly, seizing the opening. You make me co-executor. There it was. The first crack in the motive. This wasn't just about beneficiary status. It was about control of distribution. No, I said immediately. Her jaw tightened. Why not? Because I don't trust you to act in my wife's best interest. Gasps. Actual gasps. My grandmother whispered my name like I'd committed blasphemy. Mom went pale. After everything I've done for you. There it was again. The ledger. When I needed help with the down payment, I said evenly. You told me it would teach me responsibility to figure it out myself. That's different. When I asked for a short-term loan after college, you charged interest. That was to teach discipline. When I paid you back early, you told relatives I was financially reckless. The room shifted. Mom stared at me like she didn't recognize the script anymore. You're twisting history, she said. No, I replied. I remember it. She turned to Emily suddenly. What are you afraid of? She demanded. Why won't you let him include us properly? Emily didn't flinch. I'm not afraid, she said. But I am aware. Aware of what? That financial control has always come with emotional strings in this family. That hit. Claire stopped scrolling. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Mom's voice rose. So now I'm abusive? You're controlling, I said. I am protective of assets that aren't yours. Her hand slammed against the table. You think I want your money? Yes. The word landed like a dropped glass. Clean. Sharp. Unmistakable. She stood up abruptly. I gave up my career to raise you, she shouted. I sacrificed promotions. Freedom. My body. And that earns you my estate? I asked quietly. She turned toward the room, desperate for support. Is this how children treat their parents now? No one answered. Because deep down, they knew the math didn't add up. Mom inhaled sharply, regaining composure in a flash. Fine, she said. If you won't fix it willingly, we'll handle it formally. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means, she said slowly, that your father and I will restructure our own estate accordingly. Translation, financial punishment. Claire finally looked up fully. You're threatening to cut him out because he protected his wife? She asked. Mom shot her a glare. I'm protecting fairness. Fairness. The word she uses when she wants leverage. Later that night, Dad called me privately. She's talking about removing you from their will, he said quietly. I assumed. She's serious. I am too. There was a long silence. You don't understand what this means, he said. I understand perfectly. It meant losing inheritance. It meant being the black sheep. It meant decades of conditioning screaming at me to fold. But something else was louder now. My son, sleeping in the next room, depending on me to draw lines I was never allowed to draw. The next week, I received an email from a lawyer I didn't know. Subject line, Estate Clarification Meeting. My mother had booked a consultation and listed me as attending. Without asking, I stared at the screen, and for the first time, I felt something shift from anger to something colder. This wasn't fear anymore. It was calculation. She wasn't reacting emotionally. She was trying to corner me legally. And that's when I realized something ugly. If I died tomorrow, she would absolutely try to challenge the will. Not because she needed the money, but because she couldn't tolerate not controlling it. I forwarded the email to my own attorney and scheduled a meeting. Because if she wanted to escalate this into paperwork, I was done playing defense. The meeting wasn't supposed to be public. That was the invitation's wording. Private family clarification regarding estate concerns. Neutral. Professional. Sanitized. But when Emily and I walked into the law office lobby, I knew instantly it wasn't going to stay private. My mother was there. Obviously. My father sat beside her, rigid and pale. Claire was there too, arms crossed, jaw tight. And in the corner, my aunt. Of course. My mother doesn't fight alone. She builds an audience. The attorney Mom had hired, a man in his early 50s with the expression of someone who'd seen too many inheritance wars, shook my hand politely. I understand there are concerns about beneficiary designations, he began. Yes, my mother said quickly. My son made a legally reckless decision under emotional pressure. Emily didn't react outwardly, but I felt her fingers tighten around mine. I made a legally sound decision, I said calmly, after consulting my own attorney. Mom's head snapped toward me. You already involved someone else? Yes. The attorney looked mildly uncomfortable. Well, he said carefully, beneficiary assignments are entirely within your rights. However, your mother has expressed concern that excluding blood relatives could. I didn't exclude blood relatives, I interrupted. I prioritized my spouse and child. My mother leaned forward. Your child is blood. She is not. Emily met her gaze. I am his wife. You are temporary, my mother replied coldly. The word hit the air like something toxic. Dad flinched. Claire swore under her breath. That's enough, I said, my voice sharper now. No, my mother said. It isn't. Marriage fails. People change. Women leave. Emily finally spoke, her tone steady. And what exactly would you do if I did? My mother smiled thinly. I would make sure family assets stayed in the family. There it was. Not grief. Not fear. Ownership. You keep using that word, I said. Assets. Because that's what they are. They're my life. And we built that life, she snapped. No, I said quietly. You raised me. I built the rest. Her eyes widened. She turned to the attorney. You see what she's done to him? He's rewriting history. The attorney cleared his throat. I'm not here to arbitrate emotional matters. This is emotional, she insisted. He's choosing a woman over his blood. I'm choosing my wife, I said. That's what vows mean. And vows break, she shot back. And parents fail, I replied. The room went still. Dad looked like he'd been punched. Claire stared at me, shocked. Mom stood up abruptly. You ungrateful. No, I said, standing too. You don't get to call me that anymore. She laughed, high and brittle. Oh, so now I need permission to speak? No, I said. But you don't get to insult my marriage in front of me. You need to explain to him how dangerous this is. If she divorces him, she gets everything. Emily looked at the attorney calmly. That's not how it works, she said. And you know that. The attorney nodded slightly. Marital assets are governed by state law. A will primarily affects post-death distribution. Mom's composure cracked. You're all being naive, she hissed. Women change when money is involved. You're projecting, Claire said quietly. Mom rounded on her. Stay out of this. Claire didn't back down. He's protecting his wife and kid. That's normal. Mom's voice rose. Not at the expense of his parents. There is no expense, I said. You are not entitled to my estate. She stared at me. You really believe that? Yes. Her face shifted. Something colder than anger. You know, she said slowly. If something happened to you, I would contest it. The words landed like a dropped weight. Emily inhaled sharply. Dad closed his eyes. You would drag your grandson's inheritance through court? I asked. For fairness. For control, I corrected. She didn't deny it. The attorney shifted in his chair. I would advise against litigation without substantial grounds, he said carefully. Mom ignored him. You think I won't fight? She said to me. You think I'll just sit back while she takes everything? There is no taking, Emily said calmly. There's only what he chooses. Mom's voice broke. I gave you everything. No, I said quietly. You gave me childhood. That doesn't buy my adulthood. Silence. Real silence. The kind that feels like gravity shifting. She looked around the room. No one was nodding. No one was backing her. The audience had stopped applauding. You're abandoning us, she whispered. No, I said. I'm building my own family. She sank back into her chair, trembling with rage. This isn't over. It is, I replied. Then I pulled a folder from my bag. Not theatrically, just practically. This, I said, sliding it across the table, is a revocable living trust, with no contest clauses. If anyone challenges it, they forfeit any remaining discretionary gifts. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't. I already did. Her mouth opened, closed. You're threatening me with legal tricks? I'm protecting my wife and son. She stood again, furious. You are dead to me. The words hung in the air. I waited for the sting. It didn't come the way it used to. Instead, I felt something else. Clarity. If protecting my family makes me dead to you, I said evenly, then we were already buried. The attorney looked stunned. Dad looked shattered. Claire looked like she wanted to cry. Mom grabbed her purse. You'll regret this, she said. No, I replied. That was the moment. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. She walked out. Dad followed slowly, not looking at me. Claire lingered a second. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For her. I nodded. Emily touched my arm. And in that quiet office, surrounded by paperwork and stale air conditioning, I realized something irreversible had just happened. Not a fight. Not a disagreement. A fracture. And this one wasn't healing. She didn't call that night. She didn't text. She didn't post anything vague about betrayal or blood or loyalty. Silence. For a woman who weaponized attention, silence was strategy. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Certified mail. Return address, my parents' house. Emily handed it to me without a word. I knew what it was before I opened it. Inside was a copy of my parents' updated will. A highlighted clause removing me as beneficiary. Everything redirected to Claire. At the bottom, in my mother's handwriting. Actions have consequences. I stared at it longer than I expected to. Not because of the money. Because of the message. Punishment. Conditional love. Compliance or exile. Emily waited. Are you okay? She asked. I thought about it honestly. Yes, I said. But I'm done. And I meant it. Not emotionally done. Legally. Logistically. Permanently done. That evening, I drafted the message. Not reactive. Not angry. Clear. Mom. Do not contact me again. Do not contact Emily. Do not attempt to visit our home. Any further attempts to interfere with our finances, estate planning, or parenting decisions will be handled legally. You have made your position clear. I am making mine clear now. This is not temporary. I wish you well, from a distance. I sent it. Blocked her number. Blocked my dad's too. That one hurt. But neutrality had always meant enabling. Claire texted separately. I get it. I'm not choosing sides. But I get it. That was enough. The first holiday without them felt strange. Quieter. Less tense. No passive-aggressive comments about how Emily held our son. No remarks about modern marriages. No probing questions about accounts or insurance. Just peace. And grief. Because no contact isn't triumph. It's amputation. You don't celebrate losing a limb, even if it was infected. You just learn to walk differently. There were moments, especially late at night, when doubt crept in. Was I too harsh? Should I have left the door open a crack? But then I would remember her voice in that office. If something happened to you, I would contest it. She would have dragged my wife and child into court out of pride. That wasn't hypothetical. That was promise. And that clarity hardened something inside me into permanence. A month later, my attorney confirmed the trust was fully funded. No contest clause airtight. Medical proxy updated. Guardianship designated. Everything locked. Not out of spite. Out of responsibility. Dad tried once. He emailed from a new address. Your mother is devastated. You know she doesn't mean half of what she says. That was the problem. She meant enough of it. I didn't respond. Eventually, the messages stopped. Mutual friends stopped asking questions. Family gatherings continued without us. I saw photos online sometimes. Birthdays. Barbecues. Smiling faces. I felt a twist in my chest. Then I'd hear my son laughing in the living room. Emily humming in the kitchen. And I'd remember what I chose. Not a woman over blood. Not revenge over reconciliation. Protection over control. Years of subtle financial manipulation suddenly made sense in retrospect. The loans, that came with emotional interest. The insistence on being listed on accounts for emergencies. The quiet collecting of personal documents. The casual remarks about divorce statistics. It was never about legacy. It was about leverage. And once leverage failed, love turned into punishment. I mourned the mother I wished I had. The one who would have said, I'm proud you're protecting your family. Instead, I got, delete her. Blood comes first. But here's the truth I had to accept. Blood doesn't outrank vows. It doesn't outrank protection. And it certainly doesn't outrank peace. The first time my son toddled across the living room toward me, arms outstretched, I felt something simple and absolute. This is my priority. Not inheritance. Not parental approval. Not a ledger of sacrifice. Just him. Just us. Sometimes I wonder if she expected me to crawl back after being cut out of their will. If she thought fear would override autonomy. But fear only works when you believe love is conditional. And I stopped believing that the moment I chose my wife and child over control. No contact isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's not yelling back. It's not defending yourself endlessly. It's closing the door without slamming it. And letting silence do what arguments never could. The last time I saw her was in that law office. Her face tight with disbelief. You are dead to me. She meant it as a wound. I heard it as release. Because if protecting my family meant losing hers, then I finally understood what family actually meant. Not blood. Not obligation. Choice. And I chose. Irreversibly.